Manufacturing Renaissance is a nonprofit advancing systemic change in the manufacturing sector through workforce development, industrial retention, and ownership diversity strategies. Our first panelist, Pauline, holds a bachelor's in computer science and educational studies, along with a master's in public policy. With over a decade of experience in educational leadership, project management, and curriculum design, she has developed national programs that expand access to high-demand fields for historically marginalized communities. Pauline's work integrates practical initiatives such as the train the trainer models and building early warning networks for manufacturers with a broader vision of democratic, sustainable, and equitable economic systems that align directly with the next system framework. She was originally hired as a coordinator for the city of Chicago's Community Wealth Building Early Warning Network project through Manufacturing Renaissance, and now further supports the Chicagoland Industrial Retention Network. David B. Robinson is a nationally recognized public affairs executive, strategic communications expert, and veteran changemaker with over 3 decades of experience building coalitions, shaping policy, and transforming underserved communities. A former award-winning journalist, Robinson has leveraged his storytelling expertise to lead large-scale initiatives in government, nonprofit, and philanthropic sectors, most notably in workforce development, violence prevention, education, and racial equity, and has such a really interesting background that I wish I could just spend the whole time talking about. But I'll move on to David Levine, who is the co-founder and president of the American Sustainable Business Network, which amplifies the collective voice of sustainable business to lead the way to a regenerative economy that is stakeholder-driven, just, and prosperous. David is a social entrepreneur of over 40 years, focusing on whole system solutions for a sustainable society through broad stakeholder initiatives. And Katy Stanton is a co-director at the Urban Manufacturing Alliance, where she leads partnerships and development. UMA leads a network dedicated to transforming and manufacturing ecosystems towards people, the planet, and just outcomes, recognizing the significant barriers that hinder communities from influencing and benefiting from the sector. UMA brings together organizations, both those that traditionally associate with manufacturing and those that do not, to build relationships, seed new opportunities, and co-implement solutions. So I wanted to thank again all of our panelists for being here today. I'm going to head and go off camera, and we'll be there in the background to monitor the chat and the Q&A feature.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you to our fellow panelists as well for joining us for this discussion today. I'm excited. I think we're just going to have an open dialogue and kind of share the work that we're doing in Chicago, and each panelist will also kind of share their work that they're doing, the initiatives, and we'll just hopefully have a great conversation. So initially, our thought here was, we wanted to share about the Chicagoland Industrial Retention Network. This is our initiative that we're working on right now at Manufacturing Renaissance. I would say even decades in the making. We're bringing various stakeholders together, and we want to share about that and the importance of this work for being able to make systemic change. We're also really at the core of things, trying to do a lot to preserve the manufacturing sector. My colleagues will say, manufacturing is not dead, despite what people have said. We're working really hard to preserve quality jobs and think about how the ownership in the sector is, as well as supporting community wealth and economic development. So again, thank you all for being here. You're welcome to join our website as well. Go to visit our website at mfgren.org. And specifically our CERN page is /CIRN. So you heard our introductions from Kelly. So I am Pauline Lake. I am now the Executive Director of Manufacturing Renaissance. and am glad to be here today and engage in the discussion. I feel like my bio said a lot about my background, and just personally, just saying and reiterating, I live in Chicago now, and I was in Chicago originally on the South Side, and left for several years to go to New England for high school and for college, and then came back after college to visit. But then I found Manufacturing Renaissance, or Manufacturing Renaissance found me about a year and a half ago, and I'm fortunate to have been brought in to do this work and to work on our early warning system work that we were doing. So I worked alongside very close with Dan Swinney, who's our founder at Manufacturing Renaissance, as well as David Robinson, who's here today with us. So kind of just want to hand it off here to each of the panelists that are in the room. In case there's anything they want to say initially to say hello, and anything they want to add to their introduction. So David, I'm going to start with you. David R.
Great. Thank you, Pauline, and very excited to be part of the panel with old friends and colleagues. We were surprised at how quickly this moment came, but I think all of us have been doing this work long enough so we can, we can wing it because we've been at it for so long. I think it's helpful for listeners to understand a kind of a moment of clarity for me with respect to industry and the impact it's had on our communities. So I grew up in much of my youth in Chicago, and the house we were in at the time, when I was probably 11 or 12, was 4 blocks away from the U.S. Southworks, U.S. Steel Southworks. At that time, it was running 3 shifts, had probably 20,000 employees, total. Was churning out, arc steel and everything else. And the thing that was most interesting is that I didn't connect it, but because of that facility being there, my community was almost idyllic by today's standards. If you think about African American, Black, Brown, sort of middle class communities, because folks were actually middle class. They made good wage. They could afford a couple of cars, nice homes, send the kid to college. There was all kind of boutique, interesting shops in the area. And I grew up remembering how inviting the neighborhood was because there wasn't a sense of need or desperation. Me and my dog were known in the neighborhood. We'd go in the shops and they knew me and my dog. Um, Fast forward, when they shuttered the facility in late 70s, early 80s, when they fully shut it down, I was on my way to college. And by the time I got back from college, the community had gone from this idyllic one that I described to you to boarded up stores along the major thoroughfares, machine gun fire every night, um, a sense of desperation and hopelessness that had engulfed the community. And that has not changed since. Though that community is a shadow of itself, and it is a victim of short-sighted, greedy profit motivation that valued profit over people. And so many folks that were let go ended up having really hard lives because a lot of those folks were in their 50s or 60s. They didn't get pensions, and they were told that they can be greeters at Walmart or some silly thing, in order to make up the difference. And that doesn't work. The only thing that works really is system change. And it occurred to me at that time that industry and manufacturing is really the core of economic engine and building and development. Many of you may have heard of the multiplier effect, where one new job created in manufacturing creates another 6 additional jobs in the supply chain, and the driving force of that kind of economic power grows community in a way that no other sector does. And we're all sort of rushing toward AI and computers and so on, but that does not build community. Making stuff, training people to be useful either on the productive sides or owners of things where we make stuff actually is the thing that holds the country together. It is what made us the so-called light on the hill after World War II. And so I was attracted to this work because my entire life, my parents, all of what we've done is to try to bring change to community. And so I just want to kind of give a thumbs up for all the folks in this space that are busy trying to do the work, like we are. And I really appreciate some of the amazing people that have found certain pathways to try to help raise this industry, which is core to community and system success. It must be rebuilt, and it must be rebuilt in a way that does value people over profit. So there, I push the podium aside and I pass it on to David Levine.
Oh, thanks, David. And I think, just overall, what we've been focused on at the American Sustainable Business Network since we were founded in 2008 is really how to drive on a more regenerative economy, a more just economy, a sustainable economy. And sort of core to that is really the engagement of the community in determining their own future and the like. And one of the key elements that we've always seen as crucial to a regenerative and sustainable and just economy, is the opportunity for ownership. And that's ownership at all different levels here. And so the idea of understanding the present moment that we're in which we have the uncertainty around the tariffs and what's happening, in terms of moving that forward. We have other policies that are really undermining the ability for manufacturing to actually thrive here in this country. There, is the defunding of the manufacturing support centers, regional centers that have been in existence to help move manufacturing. Those are disappearing as well. So the opportunity to sort of build on the type of work that's being done in Chicago by Manufacturing Renaissance and some of the other efforts that we have going in Pennsylvania, the work we're doing in Appalachia broadly and the like, is exactly the direction that will be able to create the larger systems change that brings the ownership back to the workers, that brings the ownership back to the communities, so that we could actually provide for really creating community well-being and prosperity in all of its meetings across the board. And as far as we're concerned, this requires a number of different strategic directions and strategies that need to be followed. One is, recognize the sort of what's being called the silver tsunami, but the aging out of a lot of small manufacturing owners and the like, and then the opportunity, with programs like the ones that Manufacturing Renaissance has created in Chicago to actually support the transition to the workers themselves. Two is how do we actually use, other forms of access to capital in order to drive the shift. So the looking towards the community development financial institutions, the CDFIs, and some of the state banks or the green banks or the other financial institutions that understand the value of investing in community is another strategy. Additionally, we need to move policy. So if we're not going to be able to move policy at the federal level, programs like this, supporting worker ownership, supporting manufacturing and development and survival in cities across the country, can really be pro supported, with local and state legislation in order to recognize the value that this brings to their communities, right? We understand that the more things are localized, the more the dollars will stay in those communities, the more those communities will survive and actually thrive. So there's an opportunity to support these kinds of programs across the country, but to also look at some of the policies and access to capital strategies that we can all mobilize around together. The key is we have to be working together. So with that, I'll pass it along. Katie, you want to jump in?
Thanks, David. I don't have too much to add. I think between both Davids, you all covered a lot of the core challenges, but also core opportunities. So how can we show communities a pathway to manufacturing ownership that keeps wealth local, that empowers workers, that keeps jobs and wealth creation in those communities? We've thought a lot about the access to capital here at UMA. What types of patient and flexible capital might these transitions need, and might the community-based lenders be able to provide? And I think before I just hand it back to Pauline and David Robinson to really talk about their local work, is what kind of education across the board do we need for workers, for current owners, for lenders, for people in municipal government, other community-based organizations, to make sure that the whole ecosystem is primed and ready for the large generational shift that's about to come, not only in the ownership, but also in the type of manufacturing that our communities are going to need as we move into the future. So with that, I'll just pass it back to the Manufacturing Renaissance team.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Pauline, do you want to hop in? Or I was thinking that maybe we could quickly describe our Chicagoland Industrial Retention Initiative, and then kind of talk about its potential for scaling, which I think would be appropriate for this group.
Yeah, absolutely. I just whoops, I didn't mean to hit next. I just first wanted to make sure that we just give a shout out to Drew Crowe, who is hopefully going to join us at some point here, so we can get his thoughts and input and hear about the work he's doing as well, to just kind of bring exposure and advocate for manufacturing, as well as workforce development in manufacturing as well. So hoping he can join in just a little bit. I did want to also just give a shout out. We keep saying CIRN, Chicagoland Industrial Retention Network. I know they're not here, but just giving a shout out to all of our members that we have. And this is a growing list. So these are the members that have come about officially since the fall of 2024. So it's been almost exactly a year. And we are continuing to expand and would love to have others come and join this effort. And there's plenty of ways to be involved. We have many different stakeholders on this list. So we have our local industrial retention initiative agencies. We have one of our faith-based community partners as well. So just we have government also included. So we have a lot of banks. We have a lot of variety, and this is really a collective effort, and there's a lot of discussion as well. Just to piggyback off of what Katie said, that the training on all aspects, right? This initial list that we're going to tell you more about CIRN, but the initial list is coming from a training that we did last fall to build the capacity of most of the organizations that are on this list here. So definitely takes training on all fronts, and many different types of training as well. And I wanted to take a moment and ask Kelly, I see the chat going off, but I'm not monitoring it, so I don't know if I'm missing anything. But just let me know, Kelly, is there anybody out there that's watching that we could give a second to have them introduce themselves in the Q&A or chat?
Yeah, we actually have April, who is local in Chicago. And April, I think I can allow you to talk if you wanted to say something. So I'm gonna just click allow to talk if you're present.
Sure. Hi. I wasn't expecting that. I'm caught off guard. Hi, y'all. Yeah, so I'm in Chicago. I don't have a question. I just want to say I'd be very excited to collaborate. I'm here doing community building and solidarity and next system building work, and also looking towards next system teach-in here in the city in November. So would just love to chat.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks, April. That we'd love to. We'll follow up.
Thanks for your work.
Yeah, awesome. Is there anyone else out there in this world? Kelly, did you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, sure. My name is Kelly Wilkerson. I am a recent grad here at George Mason, and I've been involved with Next System studies here at Mason off and on for a few years, but I've been able to kind of rejoin once I finally finished all of my academic requirements. So I'm excited to be here and in the background. And I think the only other chats you mentioned were Katie reaching out to Drew.
And you reminded me, Kelly, a big shout out to Professor Mansky, who I imagine on the team that really started to play around with this idea of next systems. So I want to congratulate you guys. I have an old friend and mentor who recently retired from George Mason, Dr. Richard Rubenstein, who headed up the peace and conflict resolution. I guess it's a department there. Uh,
I think we have a whole like school for it, actually.
yeah, I think he was the chair of it for a long time.
That's awesome.
So anyway, shout out to Professor and all you guys doing good work.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, again, welcome everyone, and happy to have you all included in this discussion as we go through. And David, yes, I would love to kind of have us just do an overview of what is CERN, the work that we've been doing, and then open it up for discussion amongst those of us that are here. So it sounded like you were okay here with jumping in. So I had a little bit of background about Dan, but we can always come back to that. Just kind of go with the flow of things. Anything in particular that you wanted to mention about why we're doing this work?
Sure. And Katie kind of touched on, I think David did as well, where because of the what they term the silver tsunami, what that sort of means in real numbers for us is that a lot of baby boomers in the swath of companies that we work with, which are typically 100 employees or less, they're small. They are many times second, third generation that have survived community demographic change. And a lot of these, and 99% in Illinois are white males. And as they get ready to figure out what they're going to do with their companies, we recognize that there was a major opportunity in what appears to be a crisis. I read in the crisis side is that if we do not address this issue, there is a likelihood that many of these small to medium-sized companies will be acquired by M&A, P&A folks that may or may not have a social conscience. They may strictly be transaction driven, and therefore they'll get whatever patents are available, whatever cool equipment they can, and then they'll shutter the site. And what we've seen in our work on the ground in Chicago, and I'm sure Katie can speak to this too, is that when that small place closes, it may not seem like a big deal, but because of the supply chain, which might include the uniform supplier, various other entities that support and supply those companies and help them continue to be competitive, they go away too. And so all the jobs that are associated with that one little plant, they go away as well. And we felt like what we wanted to do was begin to find ways to connect community and people that have not ever really been part of the ownership class in the manufacturing sector, Black, brown, women, workers, cooperatives, others, give them an opportunity to create an entirely new wealth stream in up until recently a space that was unavailable to them because many of these small companies are hidden in plain sight. People don't really know what they do or who's in there or what's going on, and suddenly they go away. A lot of these owners are very, very private because these are privately held. So you don't know that they're for sale or in trouble until they are. And we have hopefully begun to build a system that can address some of the potential devastation that will occur that I sort of described when U.S. Steel closed, but in sort of smaller portions, it'll have the same devastation in the communities that they currently exist. So our challenge was, how do we connect potential new entrepreneurs with owners who are aging out and who may or may not have a plan for succession? And just to kind of give you a sense of why we know this is true, in 1989, we did a study of 800 small to medium-sized manufacturing company owners. And at that time, 42% of them had no succession plan and weren't really sure what they were going to do next. We redid the study in 2018, and that number had risen to 63% of those individuals had no real plan for what they were going to do with succession. And if you speak to the owners, and many of them, would love to kind of turn it over to the workforce, because a lot of them have workforce that have been with them for decades. Many of them would like to turn it over to family. But what they discovered is a lot of times the workforce is just doesn't feel like they're qualified to take the company over, or just don't want to. And I remember one owner told me, when I asked, I said, "So you're going to give it to your sons?" He says, "Well, one is dumb and the other's stupid, so I'm not giving it to any of them." And so we realized that we have to figure out a way to connect opportunity to this potential crisis. And just to give you a sense of nationally what that looks like, because this is happening all over the country. Uh, I think it was the Economic Policy Institute projected that over the next 5 to 12 years, there will be 10 to 12 trillion dollar turnover in wealth ownership in these companies. That's real money, and we feel like we should create the kind of system that allows folks that have are prepared. I hate to use the word qualified, because my community has had to hear that a lot, but that are ready to assume and want to assume the role of owners in these companies. So we created the training model that Pauline mentioned, early warning network, so that you can identify which companies might be in distress, or create opportunities for us to have a warm touch with the owner, to sit down with them and learn whether or not they're thinking of selling well before the market knows about that. So that when we have our folks that we have sort of developed and prepped to be prepared for opportunity, they can jump right in. And then we have financial and other technical experts, subject matter experts, because we're not that. We're organizers and we're community builders. So we bring the pros in when it's time to actually do the hard work of company analysis, looking at the books and all the things that matter in a transaction. So anyway, long story short, we have built what we think is a system that can grow into a major new way to build wealth, but also to retain the jobs, retain the economic engine, and retain industry in our communities. So that's how CERN was born, based on that process.
I think, David, you touched on this quite a bit.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it. I was all over the place. So if you want to streamline it for us, Pauline.
So just David did a great job of, as always, giving the background. Of course, he has all the historical knowledge too, and has been doing this work specifically with manufacturing alongside Dan, our founder. And it came to Manufacturing Renaissance early last year, it's a year and a half ago. So to do this work, I was amazed to see, how much was already there. So like the research, and how grounded in research this was, and the work had already really been done when I came in. And then there was also the early warning manual that had been originally done in 1996. And so I was hired to just kind of revamp that, digitize it, and come up with a plan for what the training would look like, and then execute the training. But again, I was just amazed at, how much there was, how much history there was there, how much research was there, and the potential for the impact that it was going to have. And not necessarily, 10, 12, 13 years down the line, but almost immediately the impact we would be having just by building the capacity of the individuals who were a part of the project with us. So I think everybody that has come on board so far really sees like the value and like why we're doing this. And they know like this is really important to retain the jobs, help build up the community, help diversify the ownership, and make sure that when the owners of the companies need assistance, we can point them in the right direction to someone who is that expert that they can consult with, and they feel supported, rather than them having to feel like they need to result to just closing altogether, which of course can be devastating to the communities that the plants are in. So like we from I can't say we because it was before me, but we had the example, and I think it's coming up on a slide here, of how this has worked and how it's been put into practice. And we're looking forward to being able to scale this and do this and implement it, with many more of the companies that are going to be they're viable companies and are going to be available, for acquisition and changing ownership. So we know this will work, and it has worked, and it just jumped on me. I knew it was coming up, but this is the an example of how MR, or examples rather, of how MR has done this work and has been doing the work, like I said, even before I was here. So there was the case of Bankers Print in 1986, where there was an employee buyout of the company. If I remember correctly, Bankers Print is where the customer informed someone at MR that the owner was potentially sick and they were at risk of closure, and they were able to save the plant by helping them with an employee buyout. You're seeing on the screen here, Dawn Lever, who was kind of the poster child right now for the work with the ownership succession work. So Terry Iverson was looking to sell the company, Iverson Manufacturing, and Dawn Lever was looking to acquire a business, and Manufacturing Renaissance was able to help in that acquisition. I'm going to pause for a second because I feel like, David, you always tell this story really well, because I know you were like at the heart of making that connection. So is there anything there that you want to highlight about Dawn or the process?
Yeah, thank you. A couple of things that I think are important in the system, how the system works. So Dewan wasn't just, some guy out there. He was in sales and customer engagement in manufacturing for probably a couple of decades. So he really understood the business. He understood the industry very well. Along the way, he acquired an MBA. He went through a couple of kind of ownership training model programs. One here in Chicago, the Urban League Impact Program. He went through that. So he had really done the necessary preparation to be ready when the moment came. And so Crane's Chicago Business did a story on this concept. He happened to read the story, reached out to me, and we became really friendly. And we had reached out to Mr. Iverson, who has a place in the western suburbs, and it's third generation, the Iverson Company. And Terry was ready to kind of do his, sort of work with God kind of work. He was ready to do stuff with kids and so on and so forth, and had decided to sell. And I connected the two of them. And Terry, like you might guess, is a aging white male. And we had often wondered whether or not our system could hold up with potential for cultural differences and so on and so forth. Could I bring a brother from the city out to Des Plaines and make that work so that they could actually have a successful business partnership. And Dewan, because of kind of just him being a really good person, and Terry as well, they connected at that level, and then they also connected at in terms of being able to discuss what was going to happen with the future of the company, because Terry, didn't want it to like go down the tubes. So they dated, if you will, or courted, I suppose is more accurate, for like 9 months. And occasionally I'd be part of that, but mostly Dewan and Terry worked together, and they managed to become really friendly, and they sealed the deal last June. I visited Dewan twice at the company, and they had approximately 20 employees when Dewan took it over. Um, 80% of those employees had been there over 2 decades. And there had not been a lot of reinvestment and innovation happening at the site. Terry just ran. It was a solid business. Well, Dewan now is bought new equipment. He's modernized certain things. He's got some robots active. He's put a couple of the employees that had been there a long time. He gave them really nice exit packages, and he has brought in young people that are bringing innovation to his company. So this is the model, right? This is how this thing works. And Dewan is a socially conscious. So when he brings new people in, he's aware of that. He brings more females in. He's looking for young talent that does not look like it used to look. He's changing the face of the company, but in a way that is not abrupt and sort of alarming to the marketplace. So this is Dewan is really our poster child. And now that has led to one of our other partners, Sandra Finley, who's the CEO of a group called the League of Black Women. They have a really excellent two-part training program on how to become an owner of a company. And their target students, I guess you could say, are executive C-suite sisters who have run companies, but they don't own the company. They have done, huge, have played huge roles in the success of other entities, and they now wanted to do it on their own. But they didn't come to this without some experience, some idea of what it took. So anyway, they would go through the program, and the first place they send them, if they're interested in manufacturing, is they send them to us. And so we have 3 deals that are kind of in the works right now with these ladies, and one is very exciting. There's a young lady that was part of the team that invented the Frito scoop thing, which a lot of you may be using Sunday during football season. She was on the team to do that, and had 30 years in food production and manufacturing. She said she was ready to buy her own food production company. So we've been working with her. Turns out she's out on the East Coast, so we've got to kind of do this cross city function. And I'm trying to connect her with a friend out on the East Coast to help her identify something out in that market, because we just aren't as robust. We don't have as much reach out there. So that's underway. Another young lady became a champagne expert. She was an event planner, and she grew tired of the kind of cheap champagne that was being made available at like weddings and all these ceremonies. So she decided to up the game of that. Became and went to France and became an expert in champagne, and now she's buying a vineyard. So this work also, much like my years in journalism, you meet a lot of amazing people, and there are people with a lot of interesting backgrounds doing really amazing stuff. But at the core of it is building community, building opportunity, and that's really what this work is about. So thanks, Pauline. I can go on forever.
Yeah, and I what I love about these 3 examples too, first off, is the difference there. Like, so it's not just acquisition. There's an employee ownership. There's worker cooperatives. Like, there's different models and different solutions. There's different solutions for this. And the other thing that, like, I take away too, and I love frankly, hearing David, you talk about it, is like all of these relate back to relationship building too, right? And building the relationships with the individuals, and I think taking the time to do that and kind of meet them where they are, walk them through the process, reassure them, like, we're there to support them. I do see, if it's okay, I don't know if we can squeeze this in here. There was a question in the Q&A from Matt Nelson, who said, "Thank you for this discussion. How do you overcome the entropy of stubbornness and ego? I ran small businesses for many years, and the culture was certainly to go all in until all of the wheels fall off. How do you best convince people to change well before collapse?"
Great question, and obviously somebody that's dealt with all that. Every situation is a little different, Matt, I would say, but in those kind of cases, our team of kind of subject matter experts are really pretty good at kind of identifying potential solutions that can help offset perhaps the sort of, rush to collapse. But the other thing too is part of our secret sauce, we believe, is catching that early, catching that process before it becomes essentially, irrecoverable. And how that happens is our secret sauce is the early warning network. And the early warning network, and Pauline, I'm going to let you describe it in detail because you did a great job of helping to pull it together. But essentially, it's a way to find people who know the owner personally through our networks, and those people then get back to us and facilitate a warm contact with the owner very early in the process. And part of the training involves um, community members beginning to recognize the signs of when an organization, a company, is beginning to show signs of getting in trouble. Layoffs, off days, off shift. And there are more that Pauline will walk you through, but there are certain things that signal that a company's heading for trouble. And if you have enough people in the community that have been given enough training so they can begin to recognize the signs, they then can get to the owner and say, "Hey, everything okay? Listen, we've got this organization we work with. They might be able to help you out." And we'll have a sit down with the owner, and we'll kind of do the Q&A, and the owner eventually will probably admit, like, "Man, I'm having trouble with my books. I've got all these other issues. Ops aren't working well, and whatever else it is." Or they may say, "I've just had enough. I think I'm going to sell eventually." Then we put into motion, we activate our subject matter experts and our financial people, depending if that's what's necessary, our operations people, if that's what's necessary, and if they want to sell, we activate that transactional process. Now, here's the really cool part of this for community building. So the folks that go through early warning training automatically become eligible for our give back, our incentive part of the project. So let's say we have a sit down, and the owner wants to sell. We go through the whole process, and in the process of that kind of transaction, there are success fees associated with doing the transaction. Broker or the people come in, and the owner has to pay a certain amount of money to fix things and do things, and so that is called part of the success fee. When the deal closes, everyone gets paid whatever that agreed success fee was, including our organization. We'll take a portion of the broker's fee. Then we take a portion of our fee and pass it on to the community organization, the pastor, whomever it was that initiated that very first warm touch. So let's say the uh, success fee was $250,000. We will have negotiated some portion of that with the broker. Let's say MR gets 50, and of the 50, we give 20% automatically to whoever it was that facilitated the original warm touch. So, because part of the trick to all of this is sustainability, and how do you get people excited about joining something that hasn't been talked about in 35 years in terms of manufacturing in community. Um, Incentivizing it was the way that we figured was the best way to kind of attract attention, get people engaged, get them to tie in. Some people will do it just because they're that way, but a lot of folks need an incentive, and then we bake that in. So hopefully I didn't go too far astray, Pauline. Keep me in line.
Oh, good, David. No, I think it's important because you're sharing more details about the how we're doing this, right? And that's what we want to answer. We want to share how are we doing this, but also how are we getting others involved? Where is the room for partnership and opportunity to collaborate with others? So, we're definitely going in the right direction here.
Looks
This
like Katie had to step away. Did she? Oh, okay. I see the chat.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Go ahead.
Um, okay. Katie, if you're still there, I think we got about 5 more minutes with you. We kind of jumped around here. I do want to give you an opportunity if you wanted to share more about, like, I think that question about collaborating and partnerships and initiatives. So, like, what are your thoughts on how this fits with the work that you're doing, and how do we bring others into this space with us?
Yeah, I think thanks for the question and prompt, Pauline. I think what you and David have been talking about is just really resonant with what we've been hearing. So at UMA, we've been working for a couple of years with a few partners, Common Future and Concerned Capital, to support CDFI lenders understand how what kind of financial products manufacturers need as they look to transition their company to new owners, new buyers. That's both from the seller side, but also the buyer side. And the thing that we've heard over and over through that work is the amount of time that it takes, not only from a financial perspective, certainly from a financial perspective, but also to Matt's question, which is, a lot of the owners, for very good reasons, are very connected and attached to their businesses. And so it's a question of having enough time for them to prepare both themselves as individuals, but then, of course, also the things like the books and their employees for a transition. It's also it's a vulnerable position because they don't necessarily want their competitors to know that they're thinking about this. And so there's a little bit of a game that I think, or a balance that they have to strike in terms of who they can talk to about it. And so to David Robinson's point, it's all about having those relationships. And you need a lot of different entry points, whether that's lawyers or brokers, bankers, employment folks from workforce orgs, advisors. These are conversations that need to happen early and often, and unfortunately are often not started until there's a moment of stress, like we've talked about, whether it's a sickness or private equity coming in and wanting to swoop in and buy. And so what I just want to point out is that it is a really personal journey for the sellers, but then also on the buyer side. And that was a question that I had for you and David about your work in cultivating this certain kind of network is that buyer side, and how do we help new communities who might not think of manufacturing as a sector that they care about or want to invest in or could be an owner of. How do we start also putting that into people's minds, just like you talked about in Chicago, David, with the example of the women entrepreneurs, Black Women Entrepreneurship Center. How do we start having those conversations so that those pumps are also primed, so that when buyers are ready, or excuse me, when sellers are ready to sell, when current owners are ready to sell, we have a multitude of buyers, in addition to, their own workers, or in addition to their own workers. So nothing more to add than what you already have said, but I'll just wanted to sort of underscore the fact that this is something that we're seeing across the country, and that, as manufacturing owners age, it's just getting more and more acute, to be ready in these different ways. So,
Uh,
yeah, that's it back to
Before
you.
I ask and try to answer that question, Katie, I do want to give you a shout out, you and UMA and your group. You have a new tool out there that you're sharing with owners and others. Why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about that? Because that's a big part of this too.
David, thanks for that softball. Appreciate it. Yeah, so some of my colleagues have been working on a tool that takes business owners through a decision tree. So it helps them understand where they are right now in their selling process. It could be at the very beginning, it could be midway, and it takes them all the way through, how soon do you want to sell? Who do you want to sell to? You can not know any of those answers, and it takes you through different options and has case studies and stories, to help a seller understand what it might look like to sell to their employees or sell to a outside firm or someone in their supply chain. And then it also gives a lot of sort of resources and worksheets that can help sellers make decisions and understand who they need to connect with, in order to, get their letter of intent ready, or maybe there's a lawyer or an accountant that they need to make sure their books are in order. And then at the end of that decision tree, the goal is UMA is currently building a referral network to organizations like Manufacturing Renaissance and other place-based groups, where depending on the needs of the seller who filled out the decision tree, we can refer them to whomever might give them the right technical assistance. Because I'll underscore again, the way to do this is not alone. It's to find organizations like MR, who can really guide and handhold and help support the whole process from start to finish. So we're seeing the tool that we're creating as a funnel to deliver businesses who are in specific places, to our partners like Manufacturing Renaissance, who can then kind of carry it forward. This is such a huge problem that we're trying to create as many different entry points to the process as possible.
Great, and thank you for I was tempted to fill it out myself, but then
Do it, David. I know
yeah,
you got lots of time. Just kidding, you don't.
yeah,
And
that's right.
thank you for
Um,
the opportunity.
no, I appreciate the work and it's a really amazing tool. So kind of going back to the other side where basically the money community. Um, we recognize that, like Katie pointed out, that it's important to make sure that the P&E and M&A and banking, traditional banking, and all those folks were part of this movement. So we had gone out and done a lot of meetings with individuals and kind of captured the attention of a couple of really key players in the financial community. One of them, our good friend and colleague, Tom Goldblatt, who is the managing partner of a group called Ravinia Capital. And he's like, rock star in that space. And he really appreciated what we're doing. And he really sort of locked on to the idea of retaining industry. He didn't necessarily initially come at it for social good. He just recognized from his community that it made sense to support manufacturing because of its strength in the economy, and really liked our approach. So he invited us to present to his community of money folk. And I'll never forget the first time we were invited. We went to this hotshot law firm, beautiful view overlooking the lakefront and the whole bit. And we thought we'd get, 10, 15 of his colleagues maybe to show up and it'd be an intimate meeting. And you remember this, Pauline. We had 180 people registered, and the place was packed into the lobby where the elevators are to listen to this idea, and kind of blew us away. So we gave our presentation, and I remember mentioning, so I looked around the room reflected probably $35 billion in holdings. They had PE folks, they had major bankers, they had major M&A entities. they had, sort of legends that had flown in from New York. It's like, man, what? We're onto something here. And so we have taken that initial sort of pleasantly surprising attention and winnowed it down because we don't do business unless they share our social values. We don't do any transactions or any deals unless they share that. Now, obviously, there's a whole group of them that were simply there to see if there was a deal on the table somewhere. Um, but we were able to funnel that and find other folks in that industry that recognized how important the social side and the inclusive side was. And so now we're gathering a really strong team of folks that are in the deal game, but also agree with our principles and how we want to approach this for community building. But that takes time, and it's all about the relationships. It's all about, kind of getting in people's, worlds a little bit and sharing with them beyond transaction the impact of this work. This also applies to elected officials. We live in a microwave society. A lot of the policy work that folks that we do, that's long, hard stuff, and David can speak to that. And how important it is to get champions at the legislative level to get behind this kind of thing, and because they're typically dealing with whatever the whack-a-mole policy, where whatever the hot thing is, they deal with it. But there has to be long-term sustainable fundamental policy, and we believe industry and retaining industry is one of those fundamental pieces. So there's a lot of the policy work that we do, and we have attracted some elected officials, and they get it. Jobs, they pay attention when you say jobs. They pay attention when you say revenue. And then if you can build around that ways to help them get engaged and engage their networks, that's really how we build this force to push this forward and build community wealth and retain these jobs and industry. But it's hard because they were told, just like everyone else, manufacturing's dead, don't worry about it. But then they hear recently from the current administration and as well the last administration that actually did some things. But the current administration talks about manufacturing, and yet all of the policies, particularly the tariffs, are not are not helping, frankly. And we're hearing this from our owners. They don't want to speak out because, we're in that kind of state right now. Nobody's saying anything. But the truth is, that the stuff that is being suggested as policy is not going to move this dial at all. So it will take the work of the David Levines and others out there that do this work to go from bottom up, local first. You guys have been in this game long enough to know all politics is local at one level. Well, this kind of work is local so that you can build your champions and get this at the city council, the village, the county clerk level, where they begin to kind of speak this language. So anyway, before I get too far along on that, Pauline or David, maybe you want to kind of talk about that bigger policy side.
Well, what I can add is, I mean, you touched on it briefly in saying that this is a moment where there's a great deal of, let's call it fear and concern about actually speaking out, on some of the policies that are being promulgated at the national level as well. But this type of work, what it is offering a solution. It's offering an opportunity for a path forward, and it is doing all the things that you heard that it's doing. It's, identifying the problems that exist there that no one is denying is a problem, but providing a pathway to solutions, in terms of being able to retain and actually even grow manufacturing beneficial to those communities in which they're embedded and the like. And so what we have been doing is actually building tell your story campaigns to enable and support, business owners, investors, others to sort of talk about these kinds of solutions and or the problems that they're facing. And to accommodate the concerns that some have, we've made it possible for the business owners and others to be able to actually place their name and company to it, and or to remain anonymous. And what we are seeing is that there's a great deal of pickup of interest, from the media, from legislators and the like, that are looking for a deeper understanding of how this is in, policies are impacting communities, what solutions are available, who's out there doing the good work that's there. So this is really a moment that we're encouraging everyone to take their head out of the sand, lift up. And the important part of doing this work at this moment in history is that we're doing it together, that we are not alone. That's why since 2008, 2009, we've been building it as a network. It's through that alliance. We have a whole small business and local economy working group, over 40 organizations plus national, state, local, that are gathered together exploring the kinds of solutions and policies that we could actually collectively work on. So it doesn't mean that you have to be out there on your own, but we could join with others. And like I was saying earlier, this type of work is all about a positive momentum forward. It's not pushing back, on any of the other detrimental policies that are out there. It's just recognizing a problem, coming in with a solution that will work for business, for local and state economies as well. So this is the moment to look towards those kinds of partnerships. We've got a lot of state affiliate organizations out there. There are a lot of local business groups out there that we're happy to connect folks to. This is the opportunity to grow local economies that really have, business and local business at the core of their interests. And that is the opportunity that we have to really create a shift in the economy overall.
So, David, I want to follow up with you. Something that came up in conversations I've had recently. People were concerned that because of the, um, the sort of really aggressive politicization of all of these ideas, that it's hard to get the other side, so to speak, to pay attention to this because it sounds like it's coming from, you know, the, the adversary. So in other words, it's hard to pass legislation that does not have bipartisan support. And so people were like, "What? How are you guys going to overcome, this moment that we're in? That's just extreme adversarial kind of nature." And so the what came out of the conversation was that manufacturing is in fact local security, state security, and national security. At the local level, you create revenue and jobs and taxes. At the state level, particularly in Illinois, where we have a really robust supply chain system, that system has to be protected because that's what supplies the rest of the country, from a center place like in Illinois. And of course, at the national level, innovation, exploring advanced tech, and so on and so forth, for, of course, military, but also for many other uses. What's your sense of that argument as a way to, because you mentioned don't push back, but find ways to connect. Is that something that you think can work?
Well, listen, I think, part of it is language. What we've seen take place on a lot of different policies, a lot of the attacks on diversity, equity, inclusion, and so on. So, or environmental, social, and governments, the ESG attacks. I mean, that has been mostly political rhetoric, that has been translated into, an overall anti-woke type atmosphere and the like. The what we're seeing is that there are a lot of businesses that are continuing to do that kind of work, right, and build that forward, but perhaps finding new vocabulary in order to be able to talk about it. And I think that's the opportunity. We can't completely give up the language, around inclusivity and the like, but perhaps when talking to diverse audience, right, if you're traveling internationally, you got to learn to speak the language. If you're traveling in this country, you got to learn to speak the language of the different constituencies that are out there. But I will say that historically, the work that we've done on supporting policy that supports worker ownership or manufacturing or the like has met with transpartisan, bipartisan support. It just is that apple pie set of issues that are out there that has been able to garner if you can actually get the conversation going and the like. So the key is we've got to show up. We've got to keep putting these ideas out there and find a way to find those champions that are willing to step up across the aisles in order to make things work. And, like we said, perhaps, there's too much of the political rhetoric in DC right now, but that leaves us open to a great more set of opportunities at the local and state level. And I think, we should not give up, and we don't ever propose to shift when things are not favorable at the federal level. You shift completely to the state and local level. We've got to keep both and all things moving at all times, just in case we can create those kinds of openings. And that's what we're looking for. Find the right language, find the unlikely partners to be able to be those messengers as well, right? That have whether it's the following, have the network of the others that we're trying to reach and partner with them, find the highest common ground, but be willing to compromise a bit as we move forward with these kinds of ideas.
Excellent. Pauline, any questions or any comments coming from our audience?
Nothing coming in, and I thought that, by the way, that Drew was here, but it looks like he left out. So Kelly, if he does come back, please let us know. Would love to be able to give him an opportunity to join the conversation. And thank you also, David L, for contributing to the discussion. I think that there's so many things and there's so much for us to consider, and I don't know if there is anybody that's still currently there and watching. I know there's no Q&A, but if you are there, I want to know, and I'm always happy to hear suggestions about like, think outside of the box. Like, what kind of partnerships should we be trying to pursue? Like, how should we be trying to bring people into the discussion? And I almost wish that I do wish Drew was still here so he could talk about the work that he's been doing as far as raising awareness and trying to lead to new partnerships, especially with Governor Pritzker's new Make It in Illinois campaign as well. But it also reminds me, and I kind of maybe want to hopefully not transition this too hard, but David, we didn't really explain FMR. So I'm wondering if you could kind of set the context for what Manufacturing Renaissance has done with FMR and why, like, how we were taking FMR and taking advantage of building partnerships with those other entities that were joining into the conversation. So can you give some context into what is FMR and the work that's been going on through FMR as opposed to, or in collaboration with CERN?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Obviously, by its name, CERN is regionally based, Chicagoland Industrial Retention Network. But much of our work has national and international implications. And kind of picking up on what David said, we needed a vehicle for which to bring a space to bring people together that recognize that a lot of these issues are in fact national, and in other countries are also facing some of the same issues that we are. And with respect to industrial retention and how do you move forward and prepare for a future uh, with all the changes happening in industry and politics, global politics. So we began by basically having just kind of gatherings with people from Canada, from Australia, from various other parts of the country. And they were based in a shared idea of kind of progressive momentum. And through those conversations, we agreed that this was important work that needed to attract even more people to the table. And so as part of but talk is cheap, right? So we had to create some sort of vehicles, some kind of product that could advance these ideas. And from these conversations, we put a bill together. And the bill essentially calls for $12 billion government funding to create a bottom-up process and a whole kind of community-based approach to how to move investment through communities to advance industrial policy. And it was put together initially by Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky here in Illinois, co-signed by Congressman Danny Davis, but others have picked it up. Congressman Ro Khanna, is very excited about this, and other political folks are excited. And we will be introducing the bill again this next session. And the bill, I think it's called the American Manufacturing Renaissance Act, as a matter of fact. And so part of the work of FMR is reaching out to elected officials, reaching out to other allies that would have would see value in a $12 billion infusion in their region, and what to do with that in the category of industry, in industrial retention and development. So FMR's work is really kind of directly speaking to what David said, and that's building those alliances, building, helping people understand how industry affects what they do and where they are, and then continuing to kind of have people join in the group to kind of create that momentum. So we're excited about the bill. If people are interested, they can go to our website, and we also have podcasts that are hosted by our friend Drew. We just did a really, I thought, really good podcast last week, and we invite others that have something to say about some of these issues to join us on the podcast. David, we'll have you on. I think we did something that was a little less formal, but we're going to formalize it. Bring you on, David, to talk about ASBN's work as well. So FMR is this larger version of the work that all of us do, and it's a collective of folks that have various interests, but primarily the interest is sustainable, reliable, inclusive, environmentally sound communities.
Hey, David and Pauline, perhaps, while people are still on, you should just let them know about how to tap you guys in order to be able to look at how they might be able to move programs like this in their locality as well.
Pauline?
In terms of communicating with us, yeah, you're absolutely
And the resources, and just go back through the resources that are available and how you might be able to help others if they want to spearhead an initiative in their region.
So my suggestion, thanks, David, that's a great prompt. Pauline, why don't we walk through basically the anatomy of early warning network, because we offer that training to other communities. And it might, if people are interested, we'll come to your town and train, some of your people on how to do this work.
Yeah, and I know we've thrown out, and David's told a little bit about the early warning network, being able to get those leads early. So it really is, the network itself is relying on us first doing some like data collection. It could come from both private and public sources. So far here in Chicago, we're really leaning on the connections, like in the community, like individual to individual, personal connections, introductions, whether it's with a colleague or from a pastor, really just gathering information from different sources. And then being able to make contact with the owner and be able to create a start a conversation and start to build a relationship with them. And sort of, we call it like a warm touch, where we let them know it's friendly. Hey, we're reaching out. We just want to, kind of talk with you and provide support however we can. We have the ability to offer services to them and connect them with the business-minded folks who are able to do assessments for financial and operational analysis, have a conversation and talk about what are their needs and be able to suggest the appropriate resources to them, whether that is some sort of technical assistance that they'll receive. It could be more workforce development training if they're in need of training. We also do workforce development training at Manufacturing Renaissance. We also have the one project we were talking a lot about in efforts is our ownership options and being able to point them in the right direction if they're looking to sell or convert to employee ownership. How do we approach that? How do we have those conversations and start building those relationships? The training itself, so I don't know if I had a slide on the trainings, David, but the training itself, in the fall we did about 24 hours. Hybrid is how a hybrid model is how I describe it. So some of the sessions were fully in person and the others were remote. So we had a total of 5 sessions. The participants that joined us, they also did some online work. So we had an LMS, a learning management system, where the content was built in there. They could interact with the research and stories we were finding, and watch videos, and we would have them kind of do their homework on their own. I call it asynchronously, and then we'd come together and we'd have discussions. One of my just fun memories about this is we tried to make sure we were building the model out so that way it was accommodating to the schedules. I mean, we started with executive directors of local agencies, very busy people, hard to schedule with them, but it surprised me how much they really wanted to be in person. And so we built the hybrid model thinking we're going to have some Zoom sessions and they're going to want to be on Zoom and we'll do just a few days in person. But they really wanted to be in person, and that spoke a lot to, they wanted to build the relationships, build the connections, have those conversations in person, and really be able to, if a presentation was going on, be able to have that side conversation with their elbow partner while it was happening. So the training, being about 24 hours, was also built on helping the participants learn about the early warning manual that was developed. So I mentioned earlier, it was originally written in 1996, and it came in and helped digitize it and make it. We also had a media and communications person that helped as well, to just be able to digitize it, update it, and we actually published it. So publish loosely. We have it printed and it's available online, and we've been working to revise it, but really that was our core kind of textbook, if you will, for the sessions. And we built out a syllabus that has, the learning objectives, all of the homework assignments, just building familiarity with the forms that we use. So we have a lead form or an intake form, one that can be completed online, just given to anybody that that could provide a reference or a lead. And then we have the paper version as well, could be handed around and scanned and sent in. So the training, 24 hours, it really was a mix of in-person and online. Lots of discussion that happened. There was small group projects that happened. We had a lot of presenters that came in. We had a panel as well that came in. I remember Dewan was on that panel as well. Tom Goldblatt that David mentioned earlier was on the panel as well. And really just taking time to engage with the content, talk about it, really talk about the challenges. They really talked about the challenges that they were facing and how to address them. And then in December, we had our first graduating cohort. They had their celebration, they had gift certificates, they had certificates of completion. And we took photos and everything, had a really nice celebration. And then this year is where we started just taking it to heart how much they really wanted to be together and in person and connecting. We're now meeting every other month. We connect and we invite them to a location. It changes, through wherever throughout the city. We've had very generous hosts that have had us. And they come, we talk, we engage in discussion, we talk about leads, we talk about next steps and how things are progressing. And it feels almost that it has grown in size every time because people are spreading the word. And we want to be able to do more trainings now, because now we have individuals coming to the meetings that we've been having who haven't officially done the training, but we really want them to do the training. So as we're inviting new individuals, we're thinking about how do we do the training with them and kind of scale and make sure that they get the initial information that the initial group of graduates had gotten with us. So, we have everything kind of like the model built out for the training and are ready to be able to implement that and replicate it kind of wherever, right? I don't know, David, am I missing any key things about the training that you think?
Just one thing maybe you could talk a little bit more about. We were fortunate that we've had a long partnership with the University of Illinois Great Cities Institute.
Mhm.
And so that access to a really just ahead of its time research institute that really bought this idea, that was really useful. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about kind of how that, and I would recommend that going forward for anyone else who wants to do this, is to find a partner that can help you with with research.
Yeah, I don't know if this is quite what you're thinking about, but when you say them, of course, I think of our friends, our friend Matt, Dr.
Right.
Wilson, and I think about his contributions, especially during the advisory committee phase. But before I talk about that, I think it really goes back to they were really instrumental in helping this process before I was here at MR, and like going back to the research that was being done, the research that they continue to do. I have a long history, my background, and all of the work that I've done in computer science education before coming into manufacturing was all research based. So I fully understand and support and see the need for having the research backed pieces. But I think it helps to kind of have them, and it helps also to really have the numbers to justify what you're trying to do. And it's not that we're just talking about something. It's like this is the facts. Like this is what the data is saying, and this is what's happening here. And it helps it build a case for why we're doing what we're doing. On the flip side, I think it's also important. I know it's important to have that researcher involved, because you're going to get more data the more that this continues happening, right? So whether it's in Chicago or another city, you're going to have a lot of data on your hands, and you're going to want to make sure that it is documented and you're able to make sense of that data. You're going to get a lot of data about the companies, like it's just as far as contact information, but you're going to get a lot of information about the companies themselves and the communities. And I think putting that all together and keeping track of that is very, very important for being able to craft a compelling story for what you're doing.
And
The
I would add too, we relied on them because one of the things when you're trying to reach out to legislators and local council people is to kind of show impact and projected economic impact kind of data.
Yeah.
So we don't have much of it here, but we essentially were able to kind of show if we are actually in 2026 able to successfully transition, I think our number was 10 companies. The outcomes were really astonishing in terms of revenue generation, jobs retained and new jobs created. Um, And yeah, I think this was our goal page, but the actual data on the impact is compelling, and it was something that we used to reach out to elected officials, because it's one thing to kind of talk about the sort of the process. It's another thing. Oh, here we go. Um, these are some of the numbers that came up in our study, that just with 10 entities successfully transition into new ownership, we'd look at 17,500 jobs preserved and created in the 5 years, up to 500 million in retained business revenue, 75 million in tax contributions that are retained and or created, stronger supply chains and new local business ecosystems. So as companies grow, they require new relationships with vendors that offer different services and goods. So that increases, exponentially as this works. And then, of course, the new ownership model that creates entirely new wealth. So it's important to have that research partner so that they can give you numbers you can stand behind when you are facing someone that you're either trying to convince that this makes sense, if you're trying to talk to legislators who, kind of don't hear it until they hear these numbers. So that's important.
Absolutely. And it ties into also the, like what I was saying, my other thought earlier was the advisory committee. So we had convened an advisory committee, and UIC's Great Cities Institute was part of that advisory committee, just having that knowledge and that input, that data as well, when being able to revise the manual that we have, was very important as well, because again, it's collecting the data, making sense of the data, and then being able to disseminate that information was really an important step that we took with the advisory committee.
So we have a few minutes left. Kelly gave us a heads up,
Yeah.
but I want to bring Kelly back into this as a next systems graduate. Um, and from your perspective, Kelly, what of this work connects with kind of what you guys are trying to build, if anything? What's your thinking on this, vis-a-vis the next systems approach?
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed everything you were saying, and I think the most important part that I think is really relatable to the current work we're doing at Next Systems is this community wealth building model, this idea of building that connection and relying on ways to support those who are giving their efforts, like you were saying, and ensuring that people who are helping to find you are compensated in a way that makes it worth their while. And finding opportunities to build efforts in a lot of different varieties. So I think this approach would be very applicable to a lot of the current work that's going on.
Excellent. So we almost filled time, but if rather than waste other folks' time, do we have anything else, Pauline, that we want to share other than kind of how to contact us? And we love to hear from you and maybe talk about possible partnerships in one or of the many things that we're doing.
Yeah, I think we shared, quite a bit, and definitely lots of things that we hope that the attendees will think about, and will think about their takeaways too from the session. I would love to just give an opportunity, because I do see that it looks like we have some folks that are still here watching. So, like, are there questions that you have? And even if it's for someone that was here in the room and they left, feel free to drop them in, and we can make sure that they're able to give their responses at a later time. So just wondering if there's any questions, thoughts, ideas. Practice our appropriate wait time, just in case someone is typing into the Q&A.
I
hope
heard the Jeopardy music playing.
I was muted. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, we have roughly 10 minutes before the space starts to open up for the next session at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So if there are any like lasting comments you wanted to make, or I'm kind of filling space in case somebody is typing, like you were saying, questions you want to answer, or just, a key takeaway of all this great information that you shared with us.
David, do you have anything?
Just to thank Next Systems for the opportunity, and thank you, Kelly, for helping us kind of make all this come together. And look forward to whatever we can continue to do in collaboration to kind of move the bigger ideas forward.
Great. Thank you all so much.